Hello everybody and welcome to this tutorial. Today I will be talking about our working environment. I will show you how you can set it up. So first off, we need to install VirtualBox. Now it doesn't matter if you're running Mac OS X, Linux, or Windows, you will still need to do this for several reasons really. First of all, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff and we're going to be doing it as root. So we are always facing the prospect that we might break something, that we might mess something up, and it's just better to have that virtual machine, because even if you do mess something up and even if you don't know how to fix it, it doesn't really matter. It is only a virtual machine. You don't really have any data of importance on it. However, if you mess something up on your main machine, that can be problematic. If you're forced to reinstall it or something of a kind, then you need to back all your data up, you need to figure out where everything is, etc. Or you can try fixing the problem, and depending on what that is, it could consume a large amount of your time. So just take my advice for it and go ahead and install VirtualBox. It's not that complicated, it's pretty simple. I'll show you how to do it in a minute. There is another reason why we're installing a virtual machine, and that is safety. We're going to be downloading a lot of stuff from the net, and even though I will be using sites that I consider to be safe and that a lot of other people consider to be safe, it is always good to have that extra layer of protection. So even if something happens on your virtual machine, even if it gets compromised or something of a kind, it's fine. It's a virtual machine. No problems there. There's nothing of importance there. Your private information is not there. Your credit card is not there. There is literally nothing there aside from the tools that you are using that can be obtained from the internet anyway. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and see how VirtualBox is installed. Now there are two ways of doing this. One is preferable over the other. So the first method is a lot simpler. So you can just go ahead, open up your favorite browser. Mine is Firefox. Use your favorite search engine. Type in VirtualBox. Press enter, and there you go. Straight off the bat, you have official site VirtualBox. Just going to go ahead and open it. In the left corner, it says about screenshots. There's a download of documentation here. For the time being, there really isn't any need to go over it. Rather, instead, just click downloads. Excellent. So here you have a list of host machines. You have VirtualBox for Windows hosts, for OS X hosts, for Linux hosts, Solaris hosts. Actually, for Solaris, you can just use it from the repositories immediately. But for the time being, we cannot use the repositories. We need to configure them in Linux, and repositories in Linux are places from where you pull your software for your Linux distro. Anyway, we will need VirtualBox for Linux hosts. I have already downloaded it in order to save time in this tutorial, but you just click on it and then it pops. So you have these guys are amazing. They have this virtual machine manager set up for multiple Linux distributions. So you have Ubuntu, you have Debian. Not sure why they actually separated Ubuntu and Debian, but it doesn't really matter since Ubuntu is based on Debian. Pretty much everything that works in Debian will work on Ubuntu as well. You have OpenSUSE. Wow, you even have the Enterprise. But for the time being, I'm interested in Fedora. And even though Fedora 21 came out and it says here Fedora 18, that's perfectly fine. It's going to run no problems. Anyway, right next to it, you have i386 and AMD 64. What these markations mean? Well, basically, they're just references to 32-bit and 64-bit architectures. If you do not know what your machine is, whether it's 32-bit or 64-bit, well, no problems there. Just go ahead and open up your terminal, type in uname space -a, press enter. You don't need to be root to do this. You can do this as pretty much any user, and you get a listing of information here. So you have Linux platform, local host, that's the domain. You have the version of the kernel and Fedora distribution as well. It's number 20. And then you have the architecture. So it's x86 underline 64. There we go, 64-bit architecture. Fantastic. Now that we have established that, you can actually go ahead and click on it. If you're using a 32-bit one, just click on the 32-bit one. The procedure is absolutely the same. There are literally no differences. It gives me an option to save a file, so just click save and then click OK. That will download the file for you in the default downloads folder, unless you've configured it in a different fashion. I'm just going to go ahead and cancel it because, as I said, I've downloaded it previously in order to save some time in this tutorial. So just cancel. Go back to your terminal. Now clear the screen. You will need to be root in order to do this. So just type in su, press enter, and type in your password. And of course I got my password wrong. I'm quite famous for doing this. I don't know why, but it's fine when I forget my passwords. When I forget my encryption keys, that can be a bit of a problem. Anyway, there is a tool for managing RPM packets. As this is a Red Hat distro, all the packets, software packets for it, have an extension .rpm. Here, let me just go ahead and show this to you. I'm going to go ahead and create a bit of a bigger zoom in so you can all see what I am doing here. Now, I am currently using the terminal, and I will give more detailed explanations. I will instruct you on how to use it. I will explain pretty much all the commands that we will be using in great detail, but for the time being, just tune in and follow through. So there's a command ls, and then I want to go to the folder downloads. Home, chronic, that's me, that's the username, downloads, and oops, VirtualBox, there we go. Press enter. I'm just going to go ahead and clear the screen one more time. There we go. Got exactly the same thing, but a bit better looking. Anyway, you see this extension that I have marked. It says .rpm. Now, .rpm represents a type of packet that I stated previously that is meant specifically for certain Linux distributions such as Red Hat, Fedora, CentOS, and a few others. What you can do is use your default RPM software. So just type in RPM space -i argument is for install, and then specify the path to your package. So home, chronic, downloads, VirtualBox, and press enter from here. Now again, this process is automated. There isn't much that you need to do here. Maybe press yes and that's it along the way, but in any case, this is not the method that you should be using. This is the method that I'm showing that you can use, but I wouldn't advise, as if you do install it like this, it tends to break with newer updates, so it can be a bit problematic. I will show you another method in the next tutorial where you can actually use yum, which is the default packet manager, in order to install this packet and then update it accordingly. In any case, I bid you farewell, and I'll see you in the next tutorial where I'll pick this up. Today I will show you another more reliable way to install VirtualBox. If you are wondering why on earth did I show you the other way using the RPM, if we're not going to use it here, well, it's always good to have another option. Plus, the procedure is exactly the same if you're installing any other RPM package. So you just type in RPM-I, and then you just type in the name of the package that you have downloaded and that you wish to install. The procedure is exactly the same. I would recommend passing an H argument as well to give you a status bar, because if you just go ahead and type it in like this within the name of the package, it's going to install it no problems, of course, but the screen is just going to wait. Nothing is going to happen. You might think it's bugged or something like that during the installation procedure. Like this with H, there's a status bar that shows, so you know that something in the background is happening. But as I said, it's good to have another option. what we want to do today and now is actually install VirtualBox using the default packet manager called yum and pull the package from the repositories. Now, what are repositories? Repositories are places where software packages are stored for Linux distros, and then you can pull those packets, those software packets, from your Linux distro using the default packet manager. It's very simple, it's extremely easy, and it's one of those things that you will absolutely need to know how to do, because you'll be installing and uninstalling a lot of things during the course of your pen testing career, during the course of pretty much any pen testing exercise in general. So let me just demonstrate this to you. You type in yum and then you give it a command. First of all, you use yum to call your default packet manager, which is yum basically because I'm using Fedora, but if I was using some sort of a Debian distro, it could be aptitude, or it could be apt-get, and some other distros have their own packet managers, but we're not going to get into those now. Later on, I will show you what Kali Linux is using. That is the Linux distro that we will be using in order to conduct some of the pen testing exercises. So first off, you type in yum, as I said, and then type in search, which is you're basically telling yum what to do. You want it to search for something, so you just type in search. It's pretty much exactly the same as English language. You just kind of need to figure out the logic of it. And then you want to search for an approximate name of the package that you want. So perhaps you don't know the full name or something like that. Don't worry about it. Just type in a portion of the name. It will suffice, and pretty much everything that contains that portion of the name will be displayed. So we know what we want. It's VirtualBox, and you might think that this is the full name of the package, but no, it is not. Soon you will see. And there you go. It has printed out every package that contains VirtualBox in its name, the word VirtualBox in the name of the package or in the description of the package, because you see you have the name of the package here, colon, and then you have the description of the package here. There are a lot of things have popped with the name VirtualBox, and you're wondering perhaps which one to install. Well, you need the Kmod one, and here you have the kernel version and the Fedora version. So FC would be the Fedora version, and here you have the architecture. It's 64. I can't select it. There we go. It's 64, and here you have the kernel version. So you can compare it to what you have, and based on what you have, what your operating system is, you can pick it from here, assuming that it's a Fedora 20. You can use any other distro. The procedure is fairly the same. Later on in the question parts, if you're using, for example, a Debian-based distro or a OpenSUSE or something like that, feel free to ask me. If you can't manage it there, I will help you out, no problems. But for the time being, I'm just going to go ahead and install it here. Let me just go ahead and clear the screen. In order to install the package, you need to type yum install, and then you need to go ahead and type the name of your package, which would be the last one for me anyway. This one. Oops, here we go. The name is a bit long, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy it. But you see, there is one fundamental problem here. The VirtualBox package is not found in the default repositories of Fedora. And that is a bit of a problem, primarily because none of these commands would actually work if I did not previously import RPM Fusion repositories. RPM Fusion is simply the name for a certain type of repositories containing certain types of packets. So I have imported those repositories, and now I can pull information and packages from them. If I did not do that previously, I would not have been able to do any of these things. Yum search VirtualBox would yield no results of whatsoever. I would get a blank screen. I would get like a message here saying that no packages were found that match this particular name and then just a blank screen. That's it. So that can be problematic. In order to solve that problem, you need to go ahead and open up your favorite browser. I already have this website opened. To save a bit of time, it says rpmfusion.org /configuration, but here let me just go ahead and search for it. So type into any search engine RPM Fusion, it's gonna pop, do not worry. So it's rpmfusion.org. Click on the website, open it up, and here you're gonna get instructions immediately. It's a very simplistic website. There isn't any tinkering that you need to think about or some advanced configuration, nothing of a kind. It just says for users and says enable RPM Fusion on your system. Click OK. Not OK, just click on the link, and there you go. You get a listing here, you get a listing of downloads. It says free and non-free. And don't be intimidated with this non-free. You do not need to pay for anything. It is non-free for redistributable software that is not open source software as defined by Fedora licensing guidelines. So this non-free does not refer to money. You do not need to pay anything here. I cannot make that any clearer. It simply refers that the software is not open source software as defined by Fedora licensing guidelines. So it might actually be open source, but it just doesn't fit within the boundaries of Fedora licensing guidelines. Anyway, that part is not that interesting to you. Down below, the thing that you need to know here is that non-free is actually free in terms of money, but non-free in terms of source code. Anyway, as I said, that's not really that important for you anyway at the moment. Down here you have actually RPM packages. Remember from the previous tutorial, I've showed you the extension .rpm. When you download a package, we could actually download one of these. Actually, I would download the first one and then install it using my RPM software. Just type in RPM space -I, and then I would, there we go, I just clicked on it. Then I would pass this file name as an argument as well, and it would install it no problems as well. But I don't really want to do that at the moment. I want to show you a different way of doing it. If you're wondering why it is being repeated twice, this is for free and this is for non-free. Excellent. What we want is the command line setup using RPM. It says here Fedora 14 to the most current. So mine is 20. It's going to work there, no problems as well. So you have this very long command, and you don't really need to know what every single portion of this command is or what it does. Basic sum total, it imports a repository into your system that you are going to use later on. They have given this command so you can do it from one tap. Basically, you don't need to go about doing things or anything of a kind. You basically just copy, paste this, and run it. You are using your default package manager, you're using local install option, you are not checking for certain types of keys, you are giving it the place from which to pull it, and so on and so forth. But later on, as we progress through this tutorial, we will deal extensively with Linux command line. So only then will these things become clearer to you. Once I actually explain some of the basic and fundamental things, then you will be able to understand things such as those listed in this bracket. Sorry, not bracket, within the confines of this parentheses, and so on. Because if I start explaining it now, it would make no sense, and it would simply complicate things further. As I said, later on, when we get into the command line interface of Linux, when I start explaining it in great detail, there I will begin from scratch and move you basically from beginner to advanced user in a relatively short amount of time, and then you will be able to understand what all of these things are. For the time being, just copy this content, which is within the confines of these quotation marks, and paste it into your terminal. So you do need to be root. Let me just go ahead and exit. I am no longer root, as you can see. I am now my regular user, Chronic. Just type in SU, type in your password, and paste this. Press enter. Okay, obviously it won't install here because I already have it installed. Yeah, it says nothing to do of whatsoever. But on your system where you do not have RPM Fusion installed, this would just fly as well. This would just pass, no problems, and you would successfully have installed RPM Fusion on your system as well. So clear. Anyway, I just wanted to show you something else that I neglected to show you a moment ago. This command that we've ran, it actually installs free and non-free repositories. If you just take a closer look to what I am highlighting at the moment, this is the free, so it says http download1.rpmfusion.org /free/fedora/rpmfusion free release. And down below you have the second address, again download.rpmfusion.org, and it says non-free. So I'm highlighting the entire thing here. Let me just zoom it in a bit more so everybody can see. And there you go. You have two completely, well, they're not completely different addresses, but they are definitely different addresses referring to different types of repositories. Anyway, now you can go back to your terminal. Do not log out of root. Stay root, because you will need root privileges in order to do this. Type in yum search once again VirtualBox. Press enter. Take the last one or whatever one suits your current kernel. You check the current kernel by typing in uname-a, and here you go. So it's 3.18.7.100, 3.18.7.100, FC20, FC20, and then you have the architecture listed here as well. So clear the screen, type in yum install, paste the name of the package, press space -y, and if you have this command, just press enter and it will install. It will run through. I've already installed VirtualBox to save some time as well. You will have it up and running on your system, and after you've installed it, do not forget to type in yum update as well. So let the system just run through the updates, so you would make sure that you have the latest version, that you have everything up to date and running. In any case, that would be it for this tutorial. In the next one, I will start VirtualBox up, explaining some of its features, and hopefully through the follow-up tutorials, I will start installing an operating system within my virtual machine, within my virtual environment, and we'll see how that process goes. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Today I will go ahead and download Kali Linux and demonstrate the installation procedure as well within a virtual environment. So first off, go ahead and open up your browser, type in Kali Linux, press enter, navigate over to their website. So it's www.kali.org. It's HTTPS, don't forget to check that. Go ahead and navigate over to downloads. Let me just go ahead and zoom in here. Excellent. So here you have images. So it says Kali Linux 64-bit. You can have a direct ISO download of an ISO file, or you can go over to the torrents and download it from there. Now, Kali Linux, due to the amount of tools that it has and that come pre-installed, is fairly massive for a Linux distro. I mean, it's 3 GB, which is huge. Yeah, that the download of 3 GB, it's not just gonna fly like that. Well, maybe it will. I don't know what sort of a connection do you have, but for the sake of this tutorial, I have downloaded it prior to this, so we don't have to go over through that procedure here of basically waiting for the download itself to happen. Or what you want to do, in case you didn't do it, you can just go ahead and click on ISO, click here save, click OK, and the download procedure will begin. It will be displayed here in the upper right corner. So you see it reports an hour and 20 minutes. I'm just going to go ahead and stop that because I don't want that happening. And then you have the torrent version as well. So you just click on torrents, save file, open up what is displayed here, and it should open up transmission at some point of time. It's a bit late. Let me just go ahead and try that again. Yep, there we go. So it has a few files marked here. You can just go ahead and click open, and it's gonna start the download process. This might be a bit of a faster option depending on the status of seeders, but it's really up to you. You can't really go wrong, especially if you have a faster internet connection. It will not matter that much to you. Let me just go ahead and close the browser. Now I need to go ahead and navigate over to my start menu and type in VirtualBox virtual, and as soon as you start typing, it gives you a list of options. So just go ahead and pick this one. You might want to pin it to a taskbar or something like that, like I have pinned it to my left panel. Open up VirtualBox. Excellent. So I have a few machines set up here. You can see I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 virtual machines set up. I can't run them all at the same time because, well, maybe I could if I reduced the amount of resources that I allot to each one of them, but I will not do that now. For the time being, I want to install a brand new Kali Linux. Before I can do that, I need to do a bit of a configuration. So first off, before the installation procedure starts or anything of a kind, I need to create a new environment in which this machine will be installed. So go ahead and click on New. Type in whatever name you wish. I'm just going to type in Kali, so I know that it's a Kali Linux because I have a lot of other virtual machines here, but you can name it whatever you want. The choice is entirely up to you. Type, it's obviously not Microsoft Windows, it's Linux, and it's not Ubuntu 64, but since it's based on Debian, I can type in Debian 64-bit here. Not sure if they have Kali, probably not. There we go, they do not have it. It doesn't matter. If you type in version Debian 64-bit, this is gonna work, no problems. Just click next, that's it. Here you will allot the amount of RAM that you wanted to have. Now it's not RAM intensive, it should work fine as it is by default, but I just have a habit of allotting it above 1 GB. For the sake of this tutorial, I will allot it to 2 GB of RAM, primarily because we will be working with some of the programs that can be demanding and that can be resource intensive. So I want to do this, but don't worry about it if you've given it too much RAM or too little RAM. You can always change this later on. This is very flexible. That's the beauty of VirtualBox. That's why I like it so much. You can change these at any point of time if you've deemed that you need the resources elsewhere or that you have more resources that you can allot here. So just click next. Just go ahead and click create. Create a virtual hard drive now. That is the drive that this machine will be using, and just use this one, VDI VirtualBox disk image. That's the hard drive file type. Click next. Dynamically allocate it. That's very important. And you can read here what dynamically allocated means. Basically, it is hard drive file will only use space on your physical hard drive as it fills up to the maximum fixed size. and click next. Here you will allot the drive space. Now I have a lot of drive space, so I'm just gonna go ahead and allot like maybe 120 gigs. That's gonna be more than enough for this undertaking. Since I do have a lot of drive space on my laptop, I don't really care. But if you don't have enough drive space or something like that, you can go ahead and allot it 50 gigabytes or something like that. Should work fine, no problems. 120 is more than I need, way more. So just go ahead and click create. That's it. Now we have our Kali. Now we have our environment under the name Kali set up. There is just one more thing that we need to do. We need to configure the boot order for this machine, and maybe not the boot order, but rather instead the location of the ISO file which it will pull. So go ahead and right click on it, settings, display storage, click on storage, click on empty. There's this disk icon here. It's when you click on it, it says choose a virtual CD disk file. So I have a few here, but none of these are what I actually need. If you have something in your CD-ROM drive, you can just go ahead and click here, and it's going to pull an image from a CD. But that's not really the case here. We have an ISO file that we want to use, so just go ahead and open it up. Click on Home, and I have it in my downloads folder. It should be around here somewhere. Yep, there we go. Kali Linux 109A AMD 64. I do believe that I'm slightly behind the latest version, but we're gonna fix that with updates, no problems. Open it up. It says Kali Linux 109A AMD 64.iso, and that is the type of file that we're looking for, .iso. Open it up. There you go. It's now inserted. You can see it here, the blue marcation in the center. It's marked, and Kali Linux is in the tray. So click OK. Double click on Kali, and it says starting. Now it's running. You have a few options here to utilize. You can have live AMD 64, live forensic mode, USB persistence, live USB encrypted persistence, or just go ahead and install it. So what these options are, you have live, which is basically when it runs from a USB stick or something like that. Those are the live boots, can be USBs, CDs, or something of a kind where the system is booted from an external device, and that is what people usually do when they want to access certain services which are protected by the current operating system. So when you bring it down and when you plug in your USB and boot the system from the USB stick, your system, it will not recognize any of the file permissions previously set by the system that was installed there on the hard drive of the machine because it is down. And then you can, I don't know, then you can delete stuff that the system would not allow you to delete. This is one of the way that people have used to actually delete Internet Explorer in Windows, more as a joke than anything else, just to prove that it's possible. And this is also one of the ways in which you can pool the password files in Windows and decrypt them as well. So we will deal with that a bit later on when we get into more advanced stuff. But you have failsafe mode, live failsafe mode. Well, every system pretty much has a failsafe mode. Today, it's basic boot, and it just loads the basic things, and this is practically guaranteed to boot every time you boot into failsafe mode, unless you've messed something up that is in a very, 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 very serious way. Failsafe mode will boot almost always. Forensic mode for investigators and such people, we're not going to be dealing with it in this fashion because we don't want the live, we want the installed version. And then you have live USB persistence. So this is a very nice feature that you can have. For example, you can have an operating system, Kali Linux or many other distros, installed on a USB stick, and you can have a rather large USB stick, like, I don't know, 256 gigs or something of a kind. It doesn't need to be that big, it can be a lot smaller, but the bigger the better, primarily because of this persistence flag. You can work and work, and all of your work will be saved on that USB hard drive, so you can make permanent changes to a live CD. Well, generally not to a CD. This is a USB. I do believe that there is a way of doing this with a CD as well, but nobody does that anymore. Just have a USB stick and you'll be fine. Uh, you see the first version, the live one, it means when you take it out, when you shut it down, it will forget any and all changes made to it. But when you have live USB with persistence, you can have those changes remembered. You can write them down. So next time you boot it, they will load. And here you have another great option. It's live USB encrypted persistence. So what this means is basically that all the information contained on your live USB will be encrypted, and if you happen to lose it, nobody will be able to access your data. So provided, of course, that you have something sensitive there worth protecting. And of course, I mean, you would still lose the data, but you would ensure that no one can actually access it or anything of a kind. So if you lose it, if you have some passwords or something like that stored there, oh well, no big deal. You know, it's encrypted. Nobody's going to be able to break it, provided, of course, that you have a long enough encryption key. In any case, in the follow-up tutorial, I will go ahead and proceed with the installation. Notice that we will need to install a few more things because look at this, I'm resizing the screen now, and once I go past a certain size, I can no longer increase the size of my screen, of my virtual screen. Rather, instead, I'm just increasing its edges. And that is because we need something called guest additions for VirtualBox. Guest additions enable full screen displays of virtual machines. But more of that to come in the next tutorial, and I hope I'll see you all there.